Hey guys, Selwyn again from WynnStrength.com. This week's training review is Week 8, Phase 2 of Thor's Power Program. This will be the final week of Phase 2. Day 1, like usual, wrapping up with some squats. Starting off with some squats. Again, here's a little bit more of a thorough coverage of how I warm up. Literally takes me maybe 20 to 30 minutes depending on how heavy the weight is I'm going for. Always starting off with an empty bar, focusing on technique, adding 45s and 25s in an alternating fashion, so it's really just 135, 185, 225, 275, 315. I'll try to add the belt in earlier than later, usually the 185 mark. I'll throw in a belt if it's a belted squat. If there's some knee sleeves or the shoes, whatever I'm planning on using for my final heavy set is how I will prepare for the squat all the way up. So I try not to change anything from warm up to working set. So if I'm going to use flat-soled shoes, I'll use flat-soled shoes all the way through. If I'm going to use knee sleeves, I'll use them all the way through. The only thing I would probably change is the knee wraps, just because of the different movement mechanics. So here we go with 445 for a single. The final working set, a single set of 1 rep. This is 10 pounds off my all-time heavy single. I'm quite shaky, probably close to a 9.5 RPE. Depth is a little dubious there, probably an inch or two, a little too high. And again, here we're doing some reverse lunges due to the fact I can't do walking lunges. I still love the SSB bar for doing lunges just because I don't have to worry about cranking the shoulders back. This just feels actually comfortable. I really like the SSB for weights that aren't too heavy. It's great on the shoulders and the back, but that's probably just me not liking the heavy weight with the SSB on the front, on the entire meat of the shoulder. I'm more used to like a heavy back squat. I'm used to a heavy back squat weight rather than a heavy SSB bar squat, but we have something like 10 years versus 1 month of usage, so I don't think that's the SSB. I think that's just me with a personal preference there that has a huge time factor there. These were supersetted with the standing calf raises like usual. This is probably the one exercise that stayed the same for the entire 8 weeks. I'm kind of getting bored of it. I don't really work calves in. I don't know how much this is affecting anything else in the lifts. Maybe a little bit. I don't run, so I can't see the huge benefit in them. I'm not a bodybuilder, so I'm not too concerned with how my calves look. But nevertheless, it's part of the program, and here they are. So that'll wrap up day 1. Moving on to day 2, which is vertical pushing and pulling. The main movement for today was the high incline press, or the decline overhead press. Here we have 225 for a single. That will be the last warm-up set before my working set, and here we have some fat grip ped leg rows. Still not a fan of these at all. My wrists or my grip haven't gotten used to that wider diameter grip. Maybe if I were to do this for a year it might pay off, but again, I'm still dubious as to the fact as to whether the fat grip actually does anything for regular diameter barbell work. Here we have the actual working set for my high incline bench, 235. This is super heavy. I don't like this movement at all. Struggling there, but it is taking some of the weight off of the middle of the body there, so I'm able to focus more on the shoulder development. So we'll see if I think it's helping drive up my overhead press, or at the very least helping to bring up my bench press as well. So having triceps there, so we'll see how it turns out in the long run of this program. The fat grip Pendlays seem to be... I just can't get the weight to go that heavy. The grip is so awkward it hurts my hands. Here we have the accessory movement of the day, which is the beltless overhead press. Again, loving this variety. It's like we've gone from two extremes. One where the hips aren't involved, and this one where the hips are super involved because we're not adding any support. So I think these are good. You can see my back caving out, like my lower butt caving out, which isn't great because it doesn't do that with the lighter weights. So something to work on, something that I'm always continually striving to work on, is that overhead press form. We superset that with some weighted chin-ups. Again, just enjoying these as a movement overall. Just super fun. You get a really good arm pump. I mean, who doesn't like to grow their arms? That's kind of inherent in the nature of this. So here you can really see how my back doesn't stay stacked or stable at all. I'm moving all over the place. I'm trying to put my head under the bar, but it's really slow. I'm really only popping my head forward once the bar is really cleared past my head. You can notice that. Here we go, 45 pounds. It's probably one of the heavier. Working on that heavy progression. I mean, it would be cool to get chin-ups with your own body weight weighted there, but we're talking about like 205 pounds weighted underneath me, which I don't know how realistic that is. We did have to drop down the weight from 155 to 145. Or 150 to 145, sorry. But again, still, you see the back starting to cave in. My lumbar is really just bending forward a lot. And my head doesn't pop forward. My head should be popping forward just as the bar clears. So it should pop forward right now. But it holds back, and I can feel that in the press. Once I pop my head forward, the weight comes up quicker. So that's really a technique issue. That's why I like the beltless overhead press variety, just because it is able to ingrain that technique, and it really highlights my deficiencies in the press, which will translate to a lower press there. So we move on to day 3, which is deadlifts. RPE 100 here, scrolling Instagram before any deadlift movement. We're still doing the 1-inch deficit deadlift, so this will be the last week of the 1-inch deficit deadlifts. Next week we'll move on to regular deadlifts. So that here we have again 445 for a heavy single. I don't think I've gone this heavy on a deficit deadlift before, nor have I done a deficit deadlift for a single rep. So trying to get the back set, getting a big belly breath, getting that grip right, trying to do everything the same way. I'm trying to set up a deadlift routine so I know what to do each and every time. Big breath, straighten the arms, knees out. See my knees shoot back a little bit, but the weight comes up. So it is submaximal, obviously, because we're doing a 1-inch deadlift. Trying something new here for the weighted carries. Instead of walking back and forth, I'm just doing duck walks. So I'm just walking on the spot. Feels weird. I don't know if it's actually doing anything, if it has any correlation to walking with the weight. Kind of like running on a treadmill. That's kind of the way I see it, but nothing is moving underneath me, so I pump the weight up to 275. No straps. Move a little bit. And these were for 30 seconds total. I definitely feel this is a great grip movement. I mean, if I was to load this over my max for the deadlift, I think this would really help with the grip. Now we move on to remaining deadlifts. Here I am using straps because I wouldn't be able to hold this 335 for this many reps at this weight. That is really the only issue here. I don't like the alternating grip. Just a personal preference for these specific type of deadlifts. These have gone up over the months, so it's cool to see the remaining deadlift kick up. It would be nice to see a 4 or 5 RDL. Again, focusing on tension in the hamstrings, tension in the lower back, and only going about an inch or two past the knee joint. I recently watched something from Jordan over at Barbell Medicine talking about how low he goes on the RDL, and he goes to about 1 to 2 inches below. He doesn't think there's a need to go any further or to lengthen out that range of motion. And here we have a view from the front. Again, keeping that back as tight as possible. I think not only does this help train the hamstrings, but secondarily it trains the entire back musculature in order to stay stable for the entire movement. You're not wanting to bend over at all, you're not wanting to make any movement really whatsoever in the entire back musculature. It's at such a submaximal weight, so this is 100 pounds less than a regular deadlift, so you should be able to keep that back straight. And here we go, day 4, horizontal pushing and pulling. We have a 275 bench press for a single. This will be the lightest warm-up, or the heaviest warm-up, sorry. You see it's going up pretty sweetly. That's the one thing I'm super impressed with. Super stoked with the bench press performance for this program. Here is the working set, 300 pounds for a heavy single. I just wanted to show my setup for the bench press. This is one thing that I could really use a lot of work with. But I think focusing on the technique during all the warm-ups, watching a lot of how to bench press videos is really helping drive up the technique. The Australian Strength Coach Instagram actually has some great 1 to 3 minute pointers as to how to set up for the bench press and all the other lifts, but I think the bench press is that's my second weakest lift. A little false start there, but focus on keeping the shoulder blades into the back pocket and driving my head towards the top of the bench. There we go, a little bit of a bounce there off the chest, I guess. But I do get a back cramp, which hasn't happened too frequently, but I'm happy that was for a single, because if it was any more reps, I wouldn't have been able to complete that. I'm just trying to stretch out that back cramp here, so I'm not sure if anybody else gets back cramps. If you do, comment below and let me know how you deal with them, or if there's a way to prevent them at all. I think it might just come with practice to not get them. So, but pretty stoked with that 300 pound for a single. My current PR is 305 for a single. So here we go with some weighted pull-ups. I like to alternate between the pull-ups and the chin-ups, just to hit whatever difference it may have in any sort of muscle activation. I don't think it's an if-or question. I think it's do both and just alternate them with each one. Like, we're never just doing one movement ever, so why would I not do one if we think both are beneficial? Since we're going to be pulling anyway, might as well just flip that grip around and call it a day. Here we have 225 for a low incline press. I guess low incline spotto press, because I'm not touching the chest. Maybe I should start touching the chest. I need to look into that more, whether that extra 2 inches is beneficial or not. But it just feels comfortable. Again, here driving the upper back into the bench, getting a little bit of arch, so it kind of turns into a regular flat bench press rather than a powerlifting flat bench press, so the arch is removed. And whether I use a belt for the Pendlay rows is kind of just how I feel on the day. My back didn't feel that great today, so I threw it on just for that added stability, that mental support for the lower back there. And we have 185 for a set of 8. I'm kind of happy with how the regular barbell rows are going. Haven't done these in a while, so they're starting from just above the knee and repping it out. Fair amount of body English, as you would call it. Not as full of a range of motion as a Pendlay row, but a good variety nonetheless. And there we have it, wrapping up phase 2 of Thor's Power Program. So that was week 8. Next week will be the final week, phase 3. So tune in to see how that goes. Again, please like and subscribe. Leave a comment below how you feel with my performance. I don't think it's that great. Like usual, I'll leave all the links below for my Instagram, Sebastian's Instagram, Thor's Instagram. I'll also leave a link for the program. Check out my blog at WynnStrength.com, where I put weekly written articles up regarding my performance on the program, as well as just random musings I'll come along. Some things I learn along the way, so that's a bit more frequent of a posting cycle there. Again, I try to write something different there than I write here, just to get that variety in assessing the program. Thanks again for tuning in. This has been Selwyn from WynnStrength.com.